Hey girlies, I'm back! Sorry I disappeared for a bit. I thought I'd come back with a bang with the Roman Emperor Rundown episode 2. Because I love myself. If you missed it, go and watch part 1 on the Julio-Claudians first, if you want. And if you're watching this far enough in the future, maybe episode 3 will be out by now. Remember, this is just a highlights reel of each emperor. I'm not doing biographies of their lives. If you want that, go somewhere else, you snooze fest. And cheers for 1,300 subscribers, even though I've not been posting anything. That's class. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell. My bibliography will be in the description box below. I'm all out of practice. I'm all out of whack. What do I usually say here? Just watch it. Just watch it, right? Did I do some context and background for the first video? I don't think I did, but I'll give you some now. So the last episodes about the Julio-Claudians ended with the suicide of Nero in AD 68, after which the Roman Empire was thrown into a spot of bother, the first one of many, for about a year. This year is known as the Year of the Four Emperors in AD 69. Ha ha ha, funny number, hey. Galba, Otho, Vitellius and Vespasian. Those are your 4 emperors we're going to be looking at today. Because tell you what, a lot can happen in the space of a week. Never mind a year. Jesus Christ. So let's start with Galba. We'll do them in order, obviously. Let's start with Galba. I keep wanting to say Galba, like Alaba. But no, he's just Galba. Out of all 4 emperors that are going to be covered in this video, he ruled for the longest, which was only 7 months. For the most part, he seems to have been a grumpy old git. Grumpy old git Galba. Yes, we're keeping going with this alliteration thing. Servius Sulpicius Galba, no idea if I've said that right, was born on the 24th of December, 3 BCE. He was a little Christmas Eve baby. And I'm filming this on Boxing Day, so that's actually really cute. Oh, happy birthday, Galba. And he died on the 15th of January, 69 CE, obviously. Or if that's not obvious, I'm about to make it obvious for you. I will switch it up between AD and CE throughout this entire video series, by the way, because I film it in chunks. I can't remember what I said last time. It's gonna change. It's alright though, it's not really that big a deal, is it? According to Rome's biggest yapper, Suetonius, Galba and his family actually claimed to be direct descendants of Jupiter himself. Zeus. I'm not unpacking that, whether that's true or whether Suetonius made that up. I don't care enough. What we do know is much of his family were posh snobs with very good jobs. A lot of his family worked closely with the previous emperors, the Julio-Claudians, and one of them was actually involved in the assassination of Julius Caesar. So very, very important family. Very prestigious family, well established, old money sort of guys, right? And like these other members of his family, Galba had a very, very successful political career. In 30 CE, he was made praetor, so he would have been about 33 at that point. If he was born in 3 BC, then yeah, he'd be like 33. I can do maths. She's got a brain up there, by the way. In 33 CE, he became consul, and then 40 to 42 CE he was put in control of Germania Superior under the reign of Caligula, and supposedly after Caligula died, Galba was actually encouraged to take power for himself, but he was like, no, I am in favour of Claudius. He actually supported cowardly Claudius in his ascension to power. Then in 44 CE he was promoted again to be proconsul of Africa. Africa was a very, very, very prosperous province to rule over, but it was also very unstable at the time. But Galba was given control of it because he was the one entrusted to stabilise it, right? And that he did. Then in 49 CE, Galba accompanied Claudius, cowardly Claudius, on his conquest of Britain. So he actually helped Claudius establish Britannia as a province. If you had any dissension amongst your ranks or any instability in your province, Galba was the guy that you wanted to sort them all out, and he was very, very good at that. No nonsense kind of guy, probably a bit of a prick. But after all of this success and this like very quick rise through the ranks, he retired. He buggered off until about 60 CE when lovely neckbeard Nero called him out of retirement to govern Hispania Tarraconensis for about 8 years. This was the time where Nero was grown a bit paranoid about people of high ranks in Rome potentially being able to overthrow him, basically. So he would either execute them, remove them of their power, or he would move them to faraway provinces where they could kind of not bother him as much, right? Which is essentially what he did to Galba. He knew that Galba was old, had his own sort of support in that, and he was like, nah, just go over there and leave me, and don't try and take my power, ta? But he saw Galba as that much of a threat to his rule that he decided not only did he move him away to govern Hispania Tarraconensis, he was also like, let's just plot to kill him. Let's just kill him off anyway. But Galba actually found out about this plot, and it did not go well for Nero in the end. Galba first teamed up with a guy called Julius Vindex, who was a neighbouring governor of Gallia Lugdunensis, and they both started the rebellion against Nero in 68 CE. Vindex was defeated by the Rhine legions before he could really get a move on and get a sort of start on it, but Galba, having all this previous prestige and his lineage as well helping him out, he was incredibly popular and incredibly well supported, which is why Nero wanted to get rid of him in the first place. Even Nero knew it. His paranoia was completely justified for this, really. Even his Praetorian Guard, the, special forces that are like Emperor's bodyguards, right, the proper elite ones, even they sided with Galba, and thus Nero eventually just killed himself to be done with it all, right? Thus allowing Galba and another guy called Otho, who has his own beef with Nero, and we'll get into that in just a minute, to ride into Rome together and kill off any of his sort of surviving supporters and troops. Isn't that cute? Bonding and friendships and that, Oh, cute. Galba started off really strong as emperor, actually. Had this great reputation, people really liked him, and then he made things incredibly worse for himself. First off, when him and Otho rode into town killing people who still supported Nero, they used this Roman discipline called decimation. Right? We've all heard that word, to decimate, right? We still use it today. This is incredible to me, by the way. Crazy stuff. We don't know much about it, and I couldn't find much in my research because apparently it was used very rarely. But basically you would take a military unit of men, divide them into groups of 10, and then at random pick one guy to be beaten to death by the other 9 members of his group. You would force the other soldiers to beat their pal to death.
Hey! Huh?
That's actually wild to me, and that's a word that we still use to this day, and people probably don't really think about it that much. Come back to me on that though. I want to do more research on that and maybe do a full video on it because that's fascinating. Anyway, I told you that the Praetorian Guard of Nero sided with Galba, which then eventually led for Nero killing himself, whatever. They were actually paid to do it, or they were promised pay, and Galba did not pay them once he got power. He's 73 maybe by this point? He's in his 70s, he's an old boy, and he makes the most rookie mistake you possibly could. You're not going to pay the Praetorian Guard for siding with you? This becomes a theme that none of the emperors seem to pay attention to. First and foremost, pay the guys that help you get power, or give them some sort of benefit for doing it. And despite being close with the Julio-Claudians, or despite his family being close with previous Julio-Claudian emperors, Galba did not like Nero, not one bit. Anyone left who was loyal to Nero in any way, he either stripped them of their power or just outright executed them, and he gave those positions of power to people close to himself. Thus, he alienated himself from the Praetorian Guard by not paying them. The Praetorian Guard, the Senate, the governors, any other high-up officials, because he's killed them all, or he's completely stripped them of their power. He even ended up alienating himself from the entire general public. Basic rules of being an emperor: you want to make sure, the whole bread and circuses thing, keep the people fed and keep them entertained. That's why Nero was so well liked by the public, because, yeah, fair enough, from an official high-up government standpoint, all these large amounts of money on festivals and games and all that, maybe not the best financial moves, but it kept the people, the general public, very, very entertained, and they were loving it. Galba cut all of those expenses. You're not getting your games, you're not getting your festivals, you're not getting any fun whatsoever. So he was a grumpy old boring old man, and also he raised the taxes for the people as well. It's who gave you the handbook, mate? Because you're making every wrong decision you possibly could, and you're supposed to be a very well-respected guy whose entire family has been close with other emperors to learn from these mistakes. So he pissed off absolutely everybody, and the only person he had left was his wee best pal, Otho. No. Galba, surprise surprise, did not have a biological heir to pass the empire down onto. Otho was younger, he was in a good social standing, he used to be best pals with Nero, but again we'll get into that a bit later. He should have been a very, very good choice as an heir. And also, like, just respecting your pal and the person who, you know, rewarding the person who helped you gain power in the first place should have been a pretty good choice, right? But after everything that Otho did for Galba, everything he did for that man, Galba chose some lad called Lucius Calpurnius Piso to be his heir.
I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street, I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
God knows what Galba was thinking, but he just cost himself the only pal that he had left, potentially on the entire planet. And also, that was the final straw for Otho, of course. So on the 1st of January, 69 CE, the Praetorian Guard refused to swear their loyalty to Galba, favouring Otho instead. Good choice! At the same time, the regions out in the line were hailing their support in the name of some guy called Vitellius, who was also causing Galba a little spot of bother. But we'll talk more about Vitellius a little bit later. And on the 15th of January, 69 CE, Galba and that wee Piso laddie were executed, were assassinated, killed in the middle of the Roman Forum by the Praetorian Guard. They were actually decapitated and their heads were placed on spikes for everyone to see on the orders of Otho. Slay. In the entire Roman Emperor timeline, whatever, Galba was one of the older emperors, gaining power at the ripe old age at 73 years old, actually becoming emperor at that age. His short reign of 7 months, even though it's the longest out of the 4 in the year, but it's like he only ruled for 7 months. He didn't do much, to be honest. But the few things that he did do caused enough of an upset to start a civil war for the year. What are you thinking? What are you doing, you silly old man? And once his head was displayed on a spike, our lovely little overlooked Otho took the throne for himself. Otho is much more interesting than Galba, in my opinion. I've switched back microphones, by the way, because I realised the other one was popping like hell, but it's cute, so I'll probably still use it at some point and you can just put up with it. Hee hee! From here on out, there'll be overlapping the events that we discuss because this all happened in a year, right? The next 3 guys, it all happened in very quick succession. We're going to have to fire through it, yeah, and you're just going to have to trust me. Trust and believe, please. Marcus Salvius Otho was born in 32 CE in Ferentum in Italy to a wealthy Etruscan family. He died on the 15th of April, 69 CE, of course, he's dying within this year, because hey, we're talking about it, and he died at the age of 37 years old. Oh, much younger than grumpy old Galba. And growing up, he was very, very, very close pals with Nero, actually. They were wee party pals. And if you've watched episode 1, you might be familiar with this name. Otho was actually married to Poppaea Sabina, who cheated on him with Nero and eventually became Nero's wife. So Nero forced Otho to divorce Poppaea so he could marry her instead. And Nero also banished Otho to govern Lusitania in 58 CE for about 10 years, just for good measure to keep him out the road, right? Same as what he did to Galba. And he was a fairly good governor, actually, but he never really forgave Nero for what he did, because that was the woman he loved. There's major criticism of Otho in the old sources for being a bit up himself and caring about his looks a little bit too much. He would actually wear makeup and things, he would like plaster his face and stuff, which obviously there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion. Do what you like. If you want to wear makeup. If you don't. If you want to actually care about how you look, great. I bet a lot of the emperors were ugly old boys. At least this one's trying to look good. And so many emperors have gotten away with so much worse. Why are we picking on him for that? But he governed Lusitania for about 10 years before he joined Galba in 68 CE against his ex-bex pal and girlfriend stealer. Wife stealer. But if you mind what I said merely a few moments ago, Galba did not choose Otho to be his successor. He chose Lil Piso. Who? Who the bloody hell's that? I'm not going into it, because he wasn't an emperor, I don't really care. Despite Otho lending him a helping hand and helping him to decimate all of the other supporters of Nero and helping him gain power in the first place, once again, overlooked Otho, overlooked by his own wife for Nero, overlooked by Galba to be heir. Are you seeing what I'm doing here? Aye, she's good. So Otho got to plotting, and Otho got to scheming. scheming and plotting and scheming, and planned his own little conspiracy to take power away from Galba, which I just told you about. Rewind if you missed it. After Galba was dead, one of the first things Otho did was actually reinstate images of Nero. All the things that Galba got rid of, they tore down statues and all that, Nero put them all back up and restored Nero's public image. Of course, this was someone who at one point he deeply cared about, being best pals and all that. Yes, he did him a lot of wrong, but Otho also understood how the public felt about Nero and how much they loved him. So by doing this, the people are going to love him for being like, oh my god, you're taking care of Nero's image. Oh, you still care about your oh my god, and associate the two together, right? For which he ended up being called Otho Nero, which I don't think he liked very much, considering what the guy did to him in the past. Here we go. So mind how I mentioned that Vitellius lad earlier. Here's where he sort of swings back into things. He was actually marching on Galba as well, once Galba took power from Nero. But obviously Galba was dead, Otho beat him to it. But instead of cancelling the whole thing and being like, oh, sound, Otho can have it, he just was like, nah, YOLO, we take on Otho instead. We keep marching to Rome, we're going to do this, right? So Otho marched to meet him for a wee square go. The first Battle of Bedriacum took place. So they're meeting on the battlefield, yeah? Imagine, I hate talking military history, I hate talking battle tactics, so I'm going to just fly through it. Battlefield, yeah? Otho was warned by his generals and that, hey, hold your forces back, wait for reinforcements, take it calm, wait the now. To which he said, no. He didn't listen, silly Billy. Or they also said, maybe talk it out with thingamajig, Vitellius, but he was still like, nah, let's just dive in and fight him, yeah? And he faced a massive defeat at this battle, and was absolutely pumped by Vitellius's forces. Being emperor, he didn't actually ride out into battle with them, so upon hearing the news, he took a really bad turn. He was really, really upset, because obviously he felt guilty, that was his fault. He apparently, in the camp, gave a huge, big, soppy, dramatic speech to the rest of his forces that had made it back, and to everybody that was there, before going back into his tent, probably having a wee cry. And then he stabbed himself in the heart. So Otho's dead, right, at his own hand. Some of the sources say that he was found in the morning by his servants after doing it through the night. Other sources say that his servants walked in as he was mid-act. Despite views on suicide in the ancient Roman world, this wasn't actually seen as a shameful act. It was quite the opposite, actually. Especially because he gave this big dramatic speech about saving Rome and love for the empire. And he went into all that, right? Or we think he did, because you never know. Nobody can remember the exact details of an ancient speech. Anyway, there was a lot of heroism and glory in his death because he was seen to be sacrificing himself in order to save the empire. I mean, he could have surrendered in a different way, you know what I mean? But hey, he was a dramatic wee guy. He'd been through a lot. So fair enough. He just decided to go, no, I'm not going to risk a full-out civil war with Vitellius and fracture the whole empire and this, that and the other. I'm going to bow out.
Bow wow! Bow! Bow wow! Bow wow! Bow wow! Bow wow!
Which was seen as the most heroic thing he could probably have done, to be honest. And so he was very, very well respected in his death. He was buried at a tomb in Brixellum. Well, I think he was cremated first on a pyre, so he wasn't actually buried, but he was there. That's where he was put afterwards. Tacitus, a much more respectable ancient source than Yapper Suetonius, actually stated that when Otho's body was burning, some of his soldiers actually killed themselves next to the pyre or threw themselves onto the fire to sort of join him in his glory and protect their empire in the same way, because they were that devastated at his death, but understood his vibes and thinking behind it. This whole year is a big mess, right? But Otho's sacrifice definitely saved the lives of many, many men. Wish death upon me, and avoided that sort of bit of civil war by allowing Vitellius to just stroll on into Rome. So Vitellius gets power after this. Woo! For a bit. So, Vitellius rode into Rome in July of 69 CE and took power. Yeah. But we're not done yet. Let's rewind and talk a little bit about how he actually got there in the goddamn first place. Look at this big chunky script, by the way. Sorry. Aulus Vitellius was born in 15 CE in Campania. I hardly know her. And he died at the age of 54 on the 20th of December 69 CE. Of course, he died within this year. That's the point of it. He was the first emperor ever to not be born directly into the senatorial class. He was what's known as an equite, or an equestrian class, which is sort of one step down, really, because his papa was not promoted into the senatorial class until much later in his life. So his son was obviously born before then. Whoa! Crazy, isn't it? Boring politics stuff. Whatever. In his younger days, he supposedly stayed on Capri with Emperor Tiberius, but I'm not opening that can of worms right now. And he was also very close pals with Caligula. They were debaucherous wee lads. They'd go out drinking and having fun and doing chariot races and gambling and all that good stuff. And in his life, he only married the 2 times, which for an emperor isn't too bad, actually. Well, what he got up to was quite bad. His first wife was Petronia. They two had a son together who was half blind, and he actually had the son killed so that he could claim his inheritance from his in-laws. Don't know what Petronia was up to at this point. She might have been dead. And his second marriage was in 50 CE to Galeria Fundana. Great name, by the way. To which he had Germanicus, who was his heir to thy throne and whatnot. In terms of work and like rising through the ranks and that, he did okay. He was, however, very much known for his laziness. So he wasn't, like a Galba who rose quickly and all that, whatever. He was kind of known for being a bit of a lazy bastard. In 48 CE, he was promoted to the consul. In 61 CE, he was promoted to be proconsul of Africa. Pretty good, yeah? And in 68 CE, most importantly, he was moved to govern Germania Superior under the orders of Galba, much to Galba's detriment. Haha, loser. You remember Galba, right? We spoke about him at the start. Feels like ages ago, I know. But he was quite a strict guy. Obviously, no fun, grumpy old git, whatever. And the troops in Germania Superior were sick of his rule and being they were a bit unruly themselves. They were giving him a bit of jip. So Galba put Vitellius in charge of them, being like, he's lazy, he won't do much, but he'll sort of quell them a bit and he'll take the bother and the heat off me a bit. So that's what he did. But the troops in Germania Superior actually ended up really, really liking Vitellius because he was more laid back and he was younger and he was sounder. So they actually much preferred him to Galba. They ended up liking him so much that they refused to swear their loyalty to Galba and they went, we want Vitellius as our emperor instead. Haha! And you see where it all lines up, yeah? Vitellius also had the support of Caecina, no idea if I'm saying that right, sorry, and Valens, who were 2 other generals of the Rhine legions. And Britannia, even though Britannia was like away across the water and that, they preferred Vitellius to Galba, which he brought on himself. We know this already, we've talked about that. So they all marched on Rome together. As I said before, Otho got to Galba first, and instead of just backing down, they two had it out. First battle of Bedriacum, Otho kills himself. We've talked about it. It's all one big loop, I promise. It'll be more linear next time. Yeah, it will be. There might be more hecticness like this in future episodes, but for now, just bear with me, please. So then Vitellius wins and he makes his way to Rome. Job done. As an actual ruler, Vitellius wasn't the best. Bless him. Don't think he really gave too much of a shit. I think once he got power, he was happy to just lie back and enjoy like the lavish bits of being emperor and not bother about the actual bit where you have to take care of everything. I mean, fair. I'd probably end up doing the same. Suetonius, again, this is Suetonius, so take this with a pinch of salt, that he would have multiple banquets a day. He would have a banquet at one pal's house, and then he would go down the road to another pal's house and demand another banquet from another pal, and then another pal, and he would do like Hunger Games style. I should do a video about the parallels between the ancient Roman Empire and the capital of the Hunger Games, because Suzanne Collins did her research. Anyway, what was I saying? Apparently he would use like herbs and whatever to make himself spew in between each banquet so then he could eat more. Very similar to what they do in the Hunger Games in the capital, when they'd have a big banquet, spew, then eat some more, and the whole controversy is like, oh my god, there's children literally starving and these people are spewing up and having multiple meals a day. Anyway, apparently Vitellius did that, but this is also coming from Suetonius, so maybe not. Maybe he would put on big gladiatorial games as well, and you have these big feasts, races. He'd torture people for fun as well. It's like, you're a bit of a cruel, nasty guy, aren't you? But he would really just splash the imperial cash on fun and games and debauchery, which sounds good, but not really the best, is it? In terms of like actual changes he made in his short time as emperor, he elected his own troops from Germania Superior into the Praetorian Guard. pretty much ensuring their loyalty, which, you know, we've seen from Galba is something that is a good thing to do so that they don't turn around and stab you later on. On his coinage, he added Germanicus to honour his lads. For the boys, for the lads. He was also known as quite a lazy emperor because he would rely on Valens and Caecina for a lot of his decision making. He couldn't do it on his own. He was a wee indecisive puppy, as I would be. Some sources say that they heavily encouraged his bad behaviour and would sort of egg him on. And he wanted to be a better emperor, but they were the baddies. He's a grown man, he can make his own decisions. Don't bloody blame the pals, even if the pals were also bad. Don't know why I'm defending them so hard. Anyway, he also expanded the imperial offices to allow more equestrian class lads like himself to get positions, but that's all boring politics stuff. We don't care about that. Let's get to the whimsy bits, which is my favourite bits to talk about. When he was born, it is said, again, I think this was Suetonius, so take it with a pinch of salt, girlies. Apparently his horoscope was so terribly bad, which I might look it up and pop it in the bibliography for the astrology girlies to work your magic. Tell me what the actual issue is, because I don't know the exact ins and outs of it. Whoa. Unprofessional. Get that phone off. Sorry, guys. Apparently it was so bad that his parents actively were like trying to stop him from gaining any sort of power and didn't want him to progress politically and like career-wise. They just didn't want him getting it because they were locked in. They were clued in. They were little crystal girlies and they did not want their son getting power, apparently. Which is probably where his hatred for astrologers begun. Later on in his life, an oracle, or seer, an astrologer, whatever you want to call them, prophesied that he would have a long, successful career if his mum died before him. Which you would think, in terms of like life and that, her being older would happen anyway, but rumour has it that he starved her to death sooner so that his career would take off quicker. But on the flip side of that, other sources say she wanted to die for some reason or another, so he supplied her with the poison to do so. And it was actually like he was helping his mum out. We don't know the answer to that though. Either way, it doesn't look good if an oracle has said this, or seer, whatever, a Harley Nor. Ayo, I will never let that joke die. Vitellius is also really known for banning astrologers, and he executed any of those who were still found practising within the city. Not good, because then they're obviously going to prophesy nasty things about you. But he banned them because they were saying bad things in the first place. So, not the best. But he wasn't the first emperor to actually do this. Just for some reason, I think because his career was so short and he didn't really do that much, this is something that really stands out when you're studying Vitellius and talk about Vitellius. It started with Augustus, really, astrology and all your sort of whimsical seers and stuff like that. It was really popular with the public and swaying the public's opinion, so it became a political propaganda tool, of course. So emperors would align themselves with these images or with these sort of prophecies and foretellings, or they could ruin an emperor's career. So emperors also feared them, and so over the course of the Roman Empire, they were in favour of the emperor or out of favour and being, you know, expelled from the city, that sort of thing. Just Vitellius had a hard run of it when it came to the whimsical girlies, as I like to call them. Whimsical girly is a completely gender neutral term in this scenario, by the way. I will leave an article linked below that sort of gives an overview of this. It's actually really good, so please read it if you're interested in this. We'll maybe discuss that in more depth and detail in the future at some point. So whilst Vitellius is mucking about, Vespasian is getting ready to march on him in the east. Surprise! Instead of dealing with it himself, Vitellius sent Caecina and Valens out to deal with Vespasian. Obviously, he's not going to do it himself, is he? And boom! The Second Battle of Bedriacum takes place. Yay! Caecina actually, once he got there, because Vitellius didn't chum him, actually tried to convince his forces to switch sides and favour Vespasian instead. But his troops were like, nah mate, what the hell are you talking about? So they locked him up and fought Vespasian with no commanding general. What the hell? And they lost. Well, of course they did, because they locked him away. Upon hearing about this defeat and betrayal and whatnot, Vitellius was prepared to give up. He was just going to be like, nah, it's not worth it. I'm going to hand over power and just, bugger off, because he's Probably lazy and didn't really care that much anyway. But before he could officially abdicate, his troops in the Praetorian Guard convinced him not to do it. I say convinced him, I think they sort of forced him back into the imperial palace and were like, don't you bloody well dare, mate. So he hid in the palace whilst the streets of Rome were ransacked. There was fighting, there was killing, there was argy-bargy, there was probably things on fire and that. I don't know, I wasn't there. Lots and lots of buildings were destroyed, including the massive temple to Jupiter Optimus Prime. Ha ha ha. Transformers joke. It was Jupiter Optimus Maximus, actually. Not that funny, is it? Really? Sorry. Of course they found Vitellius hiding in the imperial palace, because hey, where's the emperor going to be? In the palace. Man was dragged out and battered in the street. Battered like a fish, battered to death, beheaded, and then his head was paraded around the streets of Rome, whilst his body was thrown into the Tiber River. Slay! And to get in for good measure, his brother, whose name I did not mention at the start of this segment because I forgot, sorry, and his son Germanicus were also killed so that they couldn't avenge him or try and take power back and all that malarkey. The icing, the cringe on the cake, actually, not the icing, before the battle had even happened, Vitellius had coins minted that depicted on the obverse, reverse side, whatever, of his victory over Vespasian with like a little Nike victory on them. Idiot! Idiot! He's bloody jinxed himself there. The astrologers are always right. There's always that whimsical nature, right? He's jinxed himself. Oh, dude. Funny. Funny though, isn't it? I don't really have any final thoughts or conclusions or extra thoughts about Vitellius, to be honest. I realise now doing this video that I forgot to say a lot about him, but that's the whole point of this video. It's a highlights reel. I don't need to mention everything. I don't want to mention everything because I'll cry. Any questions? Fire away. I don't want to talk about him anymore. Vespasian takes power. There you go. Vitellius has met a very harrowing end and Vespasian has taken the power. Class. Very good, mate. Well done. Thus ending this year of civil strife and ushering in a new era known as the Flavian dynasty, followed by his two sons, Titus and Domitian. For that exact reason, I'm not going to actually talk about Vespasian today. I'm going to give myself the easy way out. There's only the three of them in the Flavian dynasty, so of course I don't want to split up the family, so we will talk about them all next time. But all you need to know right now is that Vespasian is in control as of this moment in the timeline. You're welcome! 69 CE obviously became known as the year of the four emperors because in 1 year there was 4 of them. Whoa! It was the first Otto of many Ottos in terms of the imperial succession. This will not be the last time we see such a quick exchange of power. In fact, it actually just gets worse from here, to be honest. At this point, the empire just needs a wee pick-me-up from Vespasian and his boys. A wee breather. But will they be able to restore it to its former glory and stabilise it? Find out next time on the Roman Emperor Rundown, baby. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that was okay. I hope I didn't babble too much and I eventually started making sense again at some point. I don't feel like I did. I feel like I've gone mad, to be honest. That was a lot. My bibliography for each emperor will be listed below, as well as images and any further reading stuff if you want to branch out and just do some more research for yourself. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will try my best to answer them. Or if I've missed out your favourite fact about one of these emperors, feel free to chuck it in the comments as well. As I say, this is just a highlights reel. I'm not delving into every aspect of their lives. Don't forget to like the video and share it and comment and hit the subscribe button, please. That'd be really nice. And if you want notifications, ring the bell. Although I do know the notifications get nippy. I also go live on Twitch at least once a week. Feel free to pop on over there and say hello live, where I play games and talk rubbish. Thank you. Cheers for listening. See you next Tuesday, maybe. Haha. Bye bye. Thanks for watching.